What's up, guys? Pete Fleming again with Chuck Levin's Washington Music Center, and today we're going to talk about the one and only Gretsch G6138 Bo Diddley signature model, what he called the Twang Machine. And a little bit of history. Bo Diddley, one of the founders of rock and roll. When I was growing up learning about the history of rock and roll, you always had at the top Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, even Elvis after that, Buddy Holly. But one of the names that always kind of snuck under the radar, for me anyway, was Bo Diddley. But he was just as important as those other guys. In 1955, when rock started exploding, it was those guys. 2 or 3 years later, you had your Buddy Hollys and your Elvises, who were highly influenced by Bo Diddley. Some of the innovations he made with the electric guitar and with songwriting and rock and roll itself were just, you can't say how important they were. So growing up in the South, a lot of these guys, before there were what we know as electric guitars, they would make their own guitars out of whatever was laying around. There's lots of stories about how Bo Diddley wound up with a square guitar. My personal favorite though, which he did say himself, was before the square guitar, he used to play a big old L5, which is a big, hollow, archtop jazz kind of guitar. And even back then, he was jumping around and doing his dances on stage. And let's just say, doing one of his moves with that big old L5, he hurt himself as he got close to the ground. So he wanted to design a guitar that was a little more comfortable and a little easier to jump around like a madman. So that's how we got the square guitar. And he made a bunch of them over the years, out of anything, suitcases, other instrument cases I've seen, whatever you can imagine. So in 1958, he goes to Fred Gretsch of Gretsch Guitars and approached them about designing something totally new. So in that sense, he really was one of the first guys to have a custom-made guitar, other than Les Paul working with Ted McCarty over at Gibson. Well, Bo went to Gretsch, and they sort of let him fiddle around and have free reign after the shop would close. And he experimented and tried different things out and came up. There were 3. This was the most popular one, though, which he called the Twang Machine. And it's pretty simple. This one is this faithful reissue. A couple of Filtertron humbucker pickups, 3-way toggle switch, volume for each pickup, master tone, and then over here you had a master volume. So you can blend in your 2 pickups and then have your master control. One of the other things that Bo Diddley is very, very famous for and recognized for with his contribution to rock and music in general was a very distinctive rhythm that no one else had done yet at that time. And that would be what we call the Bo Diddley rhythm. So if you have your 4/4 time, 3, 4, that's what we call the Bo Diddley rhythm. And in 1955 and for years after that, there was no way you could hear that and not want to dance a little bit. And that influence crept into, as rock grew up and progressed over the next 10, 20 years, you would hear that in all kinds of stuff. Very famously, Buddy Holly's Not Fade Away had that same rhythm, which just a couple years later was covered by a brand new band out of England called the Rolling Stones. And you can hear it throughout rock history. A lot of guys have called this a very comfortable guitar to play. And looking at it, you would think, what? How can this be comfortable? I gotta admit, it's really comfortable. It sits perfect in your lap. You have your little armrest here. So enough about me talking. I could go on and on all day about Bo Diddley. Let's listen to what it was he was doing. So thanks for hanging out with us again, guys. Pete Fleming at Chuck Levin's Washington Music Center. Check us out on social media, on our YouTube page, chucklevins.com. And come get yourself a little piece of history with this really cool guitar.